Solidarity, comrades. Sorry about the rough look right now. You know how it is with this quarantine. I hope everyone's staying safe. Today, I wanted to talk about dogmatic revisionism. Now, there are a few things I want to preface this with before I get into dogmatic revisionism and its examples of that. And it's, what is dogmatic revisionism? What groups are considered dogmatic revisionists from my opinion? And, what are some traits of it? And, why it is counter-revolutionary and antithetical to scientific socialism. So, dogmatic revisionism is looking at the historical materialist experiences of socialism, great revolutions, and taking the theory and praxis of the material conditions of the context of that revolution, such as the Bolsheviks or Chinese, and their socialism, and taking it from the material conditions and context of whenever that revolution happened and trying to apply it to the material conditions and context and time period of today. And you could probably already see that this is a problem. Now what can we say with certainty are traits of dogmatic revisionists? Well, dogmatic revisionists tend to call everyone else revisionists. One of their main mantras is anti-revisionism. And I'm not saying anti-revisionists are dogmatic revisionists. No, that's silly. I'm saying that many of them are. In particular, the original dogmatic revisionist was Enver Hoxha, the leader of the Party of Labor of Albania, in Albania, of course, Socialist Albania, and he took the ideology of Joseph Stalin from 1953 under the material conditions of the Soviet Union, under the leadership of Stalin, under the national peculiarities of the Soviet nations, and he tried to apply it to Albania, and he was successful to a degree. He built socialism, but he also diplomatically isolated Albania because Albania was no longer friendly with anyone else because they were all revisionists, according to them. You are not applying socialism like Stalin and the Soviet Communist Party did from the 1920s, from 1917 to 1953. Therefore, you are a revisionist. And there is the reason this gets so many people is because there is some merit to some of these claims. After the death of Stalin and the rise of Khrushchev, revisionist socialism was implemented in the USSR. And that was a legitimate reason to split with the Soviet Union in the eyes of Enver Hoxha. But in the eyes of any Marxist-Leninist, it would be foolish to cut ties with the largest and first socialist state in the world. And to do that is counter-revolutionary to international socialism. And what did this split with Enver Hoxha and the Soviet Union do? Well, you started getting all these parties popping up calling themselves the Communist Party of La La Land, Marxist-Leninist, Marxist-Leninist Communist Party, Marxist-Leninist, Marxist-Leninist. Well, they call themselves Marxist-Leninists, and that anyone else, the standard bearers for socialism and struggle in the world were not. They were just revisionists. So this, as you can see, is problematic. And Hoxhas to this day hold this position, which is why Hoxha's parties from for example, the American Party of Labor are dogmatic revisionists. Another group that I would like to say is dogmatic revisionists, or several groups under sort of a uniting feature. And you'll notice that I first told you about Hojists, which are... Where are they on the spectrum of ultra-leftism, right opportunism, Marxism? Well, Marxism-Leninism is the science, so ultra-leftism is trying to have this sort of revolutionary purity and ideals. And that's what you see, this revolutionary purity, these ideals that come from a time that just doesn't apply to the material conditions of today or of the national peculiarities of America, or of any other country for that matter. China, Maoism. These things are not related, and so much related at the same time. Maoism is a term made up by Western ultra-leftists from the new communist movement, and Marxism-Leninism-Maoism was made in the 80s and 90s among the Revolutionary Internationalist movement, the Gonzaloists in Peru, and the Naxalites in India, and the New People's Army in the Philippines. Now, these groups all have, or in the Revolutionary Communist Party of America, many of these small Marxist-Leninist-Maoist groups all over. So, what we need to know about these groups is that they have one uniting feature. They see a time in China, the great proletarian cultural revolution, is the height of revolutionary praxis that has ever existed in humanity. Now, they're seeing what happened in the great proletarian cultural revolution through the lens of what the Chinese ultra-leftists under the Gang of Four intended for the cultural revolution to be. A lot of people don't realize this, but these people claiming to Maoism and the great proletarian cultural revolution is that the great proletarian cultural revolution, while birthed in the minds of Comrade Mao Zedong, was very much taken to an ultra-leftist level through the Gang of Four, led by Mao's last wife, and Lin Biao. These people in China took it to massive steps that were just dangerous. And thankfully for people like Liu Shaoqi and Zhou Enlai, Deng Xiaoping, they saved China from absolute ruin and counter-revolution. Now, that ultra-leftism of China is a whole different story. But what I'm getting at is that these people are idealizing this ultra-leftist revolutionary purity at a time in China where they were not certain that it was going to work, but they were going to do it. And it turns out it didn't work. It was an abject failure. And only due to great communists like Deng Xiaoping was China able to come back from the brink of, and Zhou Enlai was China able to come back from the brink of destruction. And so you have these parties nowadays that say, well, you're a revisionist, you're a revisionist, you're a revisionist. These Maoist groups. And these Maoist groups, like I said, are taking this snapshot in history for their protracted People's War of the 1930s and 40s, which I don't see how they can apply to the material conditions of a state which has no peasantry, which has no peasantry like the United States. And a lot of them will say, well, we're just going to address the other lumpen proletariat. And then in turn doing that, you're ignoring the most advanced class that is supposed to carry out revolution, which is the proletarian class. So not only are they revisionists in the sense that they're abandoning a lot of Marx and Lenin in their analysis, but also they're dogmatic in the sense that they're holding on to these idealized visions of China that don't exist and trying to apply them in a world where even if it did exist, it wouldn't work. So this is a big issue. And I don't mean this as a slight to my comrades that adhere to this, but they just need to realize that I'm not getting these ideas that these things are dogmatic from out of my ass. What you need to do is you need to take dialectical materialism, analyze the material conditions of your country, understand the national peculiarities, understand the modern conditions, and come up with our own very unique revolutionary ideals and characteristics, which of course we learn from the Bolsheviks, we learn from the Chinese, we learn from these revolutions, but we don't copy them as dogma. They're not dogma. They are, as Mao Zedong said, where do correct ideas come from? Do they drop from the sky? No. Are they innate in the mind? No. They come from social practice and from it alone. So social practice of history is something we can learn correct ideas from. But these correct ideas during the socialist experiments of the 20th century are not going to be the same ideas that will manifest itself in 2020 United States of America, or 2020 anywhere in this world. So we need to start looking forward, and things that we can see that are forward-thinking socialism in this world, that are not dogmatic revisionists, that actually work, actually existing socialism. Cuba, the DPRK, China, Vietnam, Laos, Venezuela. These places are manifesting socialism that is in no way similar to the Chinese, or even in China, that is no way the same as their experience back in the day, which people are now trying to recreate for 2020. China has advanced their Marxism. DPRK has advanced their Marxism for their material conditions. Same with all these other socialist countries. Even if it's not Marxist, it is definitely taking on the national peculiarities of these states. And you see that these states hold up the heroes of the past and learn from the lessons of the past, but they do not look at these past experiences as gospel. They're not dogma. It's not dogma. That to look at it as dogma is revisionism. And that's why when you analyze the material conditions of the United States using dialectical materialism, you come to the result of Marxism-Leninism in the context of the American material conditions of the day. That is what we need to realize. And I used to be a revisionist. I used to be a Maoist, a dogmatic revisionist. And that was because I hadn't gotten into the meat and potatoes of dialectically analyzing these things that I held so dear. I was dialectically analyzing things that I was in opposition to, or that I wanted to solve, which is important. But I didn't use it in a historical materialist sense. I was looking at the history that had been told to me by other communists or other people who were affinity and taking it as gospel. That's not what you do. And you can learn a lot. I learned a lot of the of the mistakes of the great proletarian cultural revolution in China from the Chinese people that were there, older people. And now, even then, you need to take everything they say with a grain of salt, because everyone has their perspective, everyone has their confirmational biases, and so we need to be very careful about these things. But also, you won't make these mistakes if you just take the science of Marxism-Leninism and dialectical materialism and use it in your situation, material conditions, national peculiarities, and all of these things, then you will be successful, and that's a fact. Okay. That's what I have to say about dogmatic revisionism. Please leave some comments below what you think. I'm sure I'll get some flame, but thank you for watching, and solidarity, comrades. Have a good one.